You will all know by now that occasionally I take myself off to a hotel and find myself quickly surrounded by dead bodies and criminals. And I naturally exercise my little grey cells to try to work out who done it. I love a good murder mystery. I'm always impressed by the increasing number of TV shows that show different people involved in solving crime, from the detectives to the pathologists and the crime scene investigation unit. But I do have a mystery of my own based on those programmes. The case of the bright torches. It's a topic of great discussion among dedicated fans of such shows. Where on earth do they get those torches that shine such a bright beam? Nearly every week, the cops or the detectives or the investigators go out somewhere dark and gloomy, but they're never in any real danger thanks to those torches which light up objects miles away. I don't know whether you've got any torches at home, but when you switch them on, well, you're lucky for them to come on at all, but they're very dim, aren't they? And you can just about see your own feet rather than to be able to see miles away in the distance. That's probably the trouble with batteries. However long-lasting they may be, they give up eventually. A torch won't stay alight forever. So thank you, Mr. Duracell, but not today, thank you. I can hear the brains ticking already. Everybody has jumped ahead several squares and written their own sermon. Today is Candlemas. I can see you all thinking this. So he's going to talk about candles and how they're so much more long-lasting and traditional than torches, which rely on batteries. You may well be right. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But you know me too well by now. I always work by the saying, how do you keep an idiot in suspense? I'll tell you later. We do need to pause for a moment and consider this rather strange name of today's festival, Candlemas. Now, I've got to say, my lasting memory of this festival in the church year is of being at theological college. And on February the 2nd, there was always a solemn procession through the corridors. And we ended up with a service in the entrance lobby. Naturally, there were plastic cups over the smoke alarms to prevent the candles or the incense smoke setting them off. And I remember someone playing an incredibly out-of-tune guitar as we made a rather feeble attempt to sing "The Light of Christ Has Come into the World." I suppose it's understandable that there's confusion about this church festival. Increasingly, it's a belated official ending to the Christmas season. It ties up some of the loose ends of the Nativity story. If you've been down to St Richard's Church this month, you'll know that they left their Christmas tree up, and that stays up until today and will be taken down after the service. So today does provide the final opportunity for those who haven't done so to remove their Christmas decorations. So if you've still got that stray strand of tinsel, you can take it down today and know that there won't be bad luck for the rest of the year. Actually, on the Welsh borders, after the Christmas greenery was taken down, they used to bring in a bowl of snowdrops into the house. And this was to give the house what was called the white purification. Although if you had snowdrops in your house at any other time of the year, it was considered to be very bad luck. And snowdrops used to be called Candlemas bells or purification flowers. See, you come to hear me in a service and you get Alan Titchmarsh. Now, some churches will be holding a Christingle service today. They're more commonly held at Christmas, but they're very often these days held at Candlemas because of its themes of light and revelation. In fact, you might remember, I think it was 4 years ago here on this Sunday, we had a Christingle service and we had it with our friends within the group. Now, on the Isle of Man, we were more likely to talk at this time of year about St. Bridget or St. Bride, one of the great Celtic saints and a real harbinger of spring. Her festival was commemorated yesterday. Sometimes today's feast is described as the presentation of Christ in the temple. Others call it the purification of Mary. And in America, of course, it's even the time of year when certain sleeping furry creatures are roused to predict the return of spring, hence Groundhog Day. Perhaps it's all a mystery worthy of some of those detective stories I enjoy so much. But there is one common thread, and it's certainly enough to help us shed a little light on the subject in every sense. When we celebrate Candlemas, we're doing something similar to the early church in its worship. Many centuries ago at this time of year, there was a special service, or mass, that was held, and loads and loads of candles were scattered around the church or brought up in baskets. And then all the altar candles for the year would be consecrated, and so the festival was known as the Candlemass. The Puritans, you won't be surprised to hear, disapproved of this. One angry sermon referred to the notorious acts of John Cousins, who one Candlemas Day spent no less than 2 hours in climbing long ladders to stick up wax candles in the cathedral church. No less than 220 plus 16 torches, to be precise. And then candles would be given to all the members of the congregation, and after the service they were able to take them home and preserved, as they were believed to have special protective or healing powers. In England, a specially large candle might be lit on Candlemas night, and the family gathered around it, feasting until it burned out. If you look around churches today, you'll realise that we still use candles in our worship. Originally, they would have been used to light up the darkness before the days of electricity made everything so easy. Maybe you can picture how magical it would have looked when people poured into a dark church, holding candles to light the way. Today, we tend to use candles to remind us of the light of Christ, which has come into the world, and which shows the world the way in all its darkness and problems and ignorance. But if you think about it, the candle is a bit strange as a symbol of Jesus Christ. Those of you who prepare the church for our worship, or who have had to light an Advent wreath, will know how difficult it can be to light candles, especially in churches. The tiny flame flutters in the slightest breeze. The hot wax runs down the candle and burns your fingers, and of course it's all too easy for them to fizzle out completely. Can something so small and insignificant, so awkward, so dangerous, truly be said to represent Jesus Christ? How can a tiny flame set the world on fire? But wait a moment. We are, after all, the ones who are urged to carry the candles when we are given them in church. You'll know occasionally we've had a procession, very often in Christingle or just before Christmas, where we've lit candles and handed them out. So we are the candle or light bearers. We carry the symbols of the light of Christ. So perhaps the candle doesn't just represent Jesus, but it also represents ourselves as lights to the world. Just as the candle can be difficult to light, so the world can fail to respond to the light of Christ through the good news we have to share. The flame is always there. It's been burning for 2,000 years. But it's up to each of us to spread that light, to make Christ known. Actually, it's something the early Celtic saints were very keen on. St. Aidan is always depicted as holding a burning torch, and it represents shining the light of Christ to all those in darkness, all those living in the shadows, all those who have not heard the good news about Jesus. That good news, don't forget, that we've been talking about and proclaiming with joy ever since Christmas. As we know, the candle once lit flickers in the breeze, and it can be very easily put out. In the same way, the light of Christ within each of us can flicker or falter in the breeze of each false teaching or in times of trouble. But the good news of Jesus Christ is rather like one of those birthday cake candles, which when you blow them out, just light up again. And as for that hot wax dripping onto the fingers, well, there are plenty of places in the world which could tell you about how dangerous it is to keep the gospel flame alive. But people do it anyway. It's been said that candles are a thing of the past, and perhaps we ought to use electric lights and torches after all as a sign of the times. Oh dear, can you imagine the arguments about which colour lampshades would best match the altar hangings? But is there not a beauty in the candle, a simplicity, perhaps even a vulnerability that attracts us to using it in our worship? Isn't there something rather special about identifying ourselves with something which has been at the ritual heart of Christian worship for centuries? There's something spine-tingling and exhilarating about the knowledge that as we light our candles, we identify with the millions of Christians who day after day, century through century, have proclaimed that the light of the world is not the sun of creation by day or the evening lamp by night, but the eternal Son of God, the true light that enlightens everyone. Candles can point us to Christ, the one true light, who gives us the spiritual understanding we need in order to make sense of the lives we lead wherever we lead them. So when you leave this place, go out and reflect the light of Christ to all those you meet. Let the light of Christ shine in your lives, in your words and in your actions. And it doesn't matter whether you feel you're a whopping great altar candle or a teeny weeny birthday cake candle. Just shine as brightly as you can. If you can count yourself as a follower of Jesus, you are already switched on. And don't forget that one day we will all be called to account by God for our light bearing in the doom and gloom. And as we stand in the full glare of God's one true light, we'll be reminded that we have either been flames burning brightly and proudly, or we've merely been candles in the wind. Amen.